All right, guys, we're going to continue with ATARI Force issue number 9 from DC Comics. Probably one of my all-time favorites when it comes to science fiction comic books. This is great. Art is great. It has that really 80s science fiction feel, which I'm a big fan of personally. So without further ado, let's dive in. We here at ATARI Station, and we have this professor. And she is basically analyzing Chris's powers because he can do the phasing thing, right? But she is also very attached to him, more like a mother figure, right? And she's watching the videos about his training, and she really misses him. But then, out of nowhere, Chris jumps out from the multiverse. Not the multiverse that you and I know here in modern day, but back in the. Is this an 80s book, right? It must be an 80s book, right? Completely blind. When does it say that? 1984. Yes. Multiverse was just, very niche. And I like that, it was something new that you could explore instead of, now is everyone a multiverse clone or whatever. Anyway, art looks great by Jose Garcia Lopez, another classic. A fantastic artist, he can lots of do detail. I mean, I like this apartment when, we have this computer terminal, we have the kitchen, we have a couch, and, relics in here, gives this room a little bit more character, if you will. All right. So Professor is, she says, hey, call me Lucia, right? She wants to know what's going on. And he says, hey, you've been hunted by ATARI Security Force, right? Because they are stealing Scanner 1 and... Right, well, they don't like the ATARI Force, right? And he said, what happened to your arm? He said, sit still, I bring you a soup. I also like that she is very casually clothed with high heels, and her bathrobe and a cigarette in her mouth. It's just, I like that. But, this is more like a recap what happened in issues 1 till 8. So I'm not going to go through all that, but basically Chris is telling Lucia what happened, right? It's just all a recap. It's about 3 pages. And yeah, is it 3? 4, excuse me. So this is all a complete recap, right? And if you want to know what's going on, I mean, you don't have to watch my videos, but I like you to do that. You can pause the video here if you want. Read it for yourself if you are new to the channel, right? You can pause the video here and here. I mean, sorry, the light is a little bit, it's a little bit better. Because of the light, the focus is not always perfect. All right, moving on. So Chris talks about the Dark Destroyer, right? And so Lucia says, hey, maybe we can find in the computer terminal about something, but it seems that they are being locked out because it's, private information. So it seems that the security guards get a notification that someone broke into those files, and they realize it's Lucia. And to this guy called Hunter, he says it all makes sense because, well, he knows that, she is involved with the champions, right? Martin and Chris Champion. So, he says, Chris says, I'm going to find out to other sources. And she says, hey, be careful, Chris, if anything happens to you. And then Hunter comes in. He looks like a character from G.I. Joe, I must admit, with the big mustache. He says, something already has, lady. He stole ATARI property that makes him my meat. I had you figured, didn't I, punk? Stand nice and quiet. And now don't try. Try what? You mean this? Damn. And she says, hey, what are you doing here? This is a private apartment. I call security. And he says, lady, I am security. All right, so they're going hunting, for Chris. And Chris is just multiversing, teleporting into the parents of Dart. They have been called, let's say, Lisan O'Rourke and Mohammada Singh. So I said, hey, what are you doing here? Tell me all about it. But, of course, we're not going to do that. So we're going to Scanner 1. And it seems that Morphia has seen some changes in Martin. He says, "You are subdued, strangely introspective. You seem uncertain." He says, "The destroyer had us in his grasp. He could have easily killed us all despite Dart's threat, yet he let us go. Why?" And she says, "Well, why don't you tell us what maybe possibly the motive is?" But, somehow or some reason, Martin doesn't want to tell what's happening, back, with the first ATARI Force. So a little bit of a context. I grew up with the ATARI Force. I have Dutch versions, which means I didn't realize there was also I'm not sure if it's a volume 1, more like a mini-series from the original ATARI Force. So there was a book before this, 4 or 5 issues. It's very hard to get, even on eBay. So it's a little bit next to impossible. Unless they do some kind of a trade paperback or hardcover, because some reason they still haven't done that. And I don't know why. I mean, this is a very good series. Meanwhile, Morpheus, think about about Hokka, Babe, and Taz, even Pangrat, and she's, a little bit amused by all this antics, this, chaos is on board of the ship. And then she's going to Dart, who is, training. And she's now ramping up the difficulty. And the next, I love this. Look at this. This is fantastic. I really like this sequence. It reminds me a lot of, now I'm acting like an old dude. It reminds me of X-Men when they are training in the how do you say, the danger room or something. And yeah, it looks fantastic. All these different moves and Morpheus says, "Oh, what's going on?" And she says, "Hey, that's what I call a workout. Any word from Chris?" And Morpheus says no, and even his father don't know that. It's better that he doesn't know it at all. And she says, "How did you survive this laser beam sequence?" She says, "Visions. Even when they completely take over, even if they don't even take over completely, it gives me an instinct for probabilities. It wasn't always this good, though Blackjack now worked out a training schedule, and oh no," she talked about Blackjack, and it makes her sad because she's lost him, right? He's dead. Meanwhile, Pangrat is very amused and pleased with himself because he stole something. He's a thief, right? Although it's on scanner 1. He's stealing from his companions. But then some kind of a, I don't know, flying vehicle? Flying eye? Is for the next quarter hour, Pac-Man will remain immobilized with fear. Meanwhile, we have what's his name? Sang Sing, telling the story about what happened in the multiverse in the previous, volume 1 or the miniseries of the ATARI Force. "Chris, I can tell you about our first encounter with the being we came to call the Dark Destroyer. Happens 2 days ago." Sorry for the bad lighting and resolution here, Constant. "When we of the original ATARI Force probed the many dimensions of the multiverse aboard Scanner 1, seeking a new Earth for the war-weary survivors of the old." And so it sees that he and a lot of other people, including, Martin and his girlfriend back at the time, or his wife, Chris's mother, and they found a being that grabs them, right, for reasons, and they are, doing some kind of a defense mechanisms, and they escape the clutches of the being they call later the Dark Destroyer. So it's for them, a little bit unbelievable that some kind of a, monster is living between dimensions as big as a planet, right? So, but then Chris says, "Hey, this cannot be it, because the Dark Destroyer is just a dude, right? He just looks totally different." He says, "You and my daughter are very much alike, Christopher. Not surprising, I suppose, since you were raised together. Both of you so impatient." So these are Dart's parents, right? So Lu Xing is, going outside thinking of a daughter. But then we see some shadows and a mustache. Yes. So He tells them the story that they found a planet in a multiverse, so they are landing down. This is some kind of a dead civilization here. And then they found the Haka, which become, well, I don't know, their pet, I guess. And the Haka leads them to some ruins. So they split into two parties. And then the first party is now getting then attacked by some alien craft. And before they are, on the brink of death, it seems that a starship coming out of nowhere, or fighter jet, and it seems that, Lee Sang and this guy has found it. And it seems that Haka lead them to this alien craft. He explains then that they are, he says the Haka led to a starfighter, our Haka? I don't get it. How could you have flown this thing without months of training? He also led us to this, Christopher, a mind's jewel, a repository of a dead race's total knowledge. In 20 years, we only scratched the surface of the information it contains. One thing we did learn, or rather Lucas Orion learned this, the ships there attacked us were pilots by aliens called Xylons. Battlestar Galactica? Well, yeah, it looks a little bit, so it's a little bit rip-off. I get it. I don't mind. And the Silence were mind-controlled by the Dark Destroyer. So, Lee San is then being attacked by ATARI Space Force guards. But they forget that she was once upon a time head of ATARI security. So she can really, really fight, right? So yes, he's kicking them into their homes. Station security, Christopher. I don't know how, but you were followed. All right. So Hunter comes in and he said, Hunter, I heard you were cashiered. I thought, cashiered? Is that being booted or being into retirement? So it seems that he says, for excessive zeal. They said, so he's basically a loose cannon, right? They said, when Scanner 1 was stolen, the council unretired me. Hold it, boy. I said, hold it. Saints, man, you're a maniac. That's a mere boy you were shooting at. Have it your way, O'Rourke. To me, boy or not, he's a thief. A thief with only a few friends left on New Earth, and I know them all. Next time, I won't shoot to miss. Uh-oh, it's not good. Meanwhile, Packrat is here explaining that he saw something. Of course, I like this. This gives it a little bit of levity here, right? This innocent-looking table stuff here where they are eating, playing around, and Dart says, "Okay, show me the place where you saw it. I'm going to go with you." Dart says. He says, "What are you doing here?" He says, "Well, never mind. You know, of course, he's a thief, right? He has all this stuff here." But then he says, "Trouble with you, Packard. You're always terrified. You jump at your own shadow. In fact, it's probably what you son of a gunbutt. Stay here, Packrat. Whatever you do, don't move." And he's falling unconscious because he was afraid. It's so silly, but it works. It is really in character. So she's following that device, and she recognizes it's a Porta orb. Last time I saw one of those. No, it can't be. Don't even think of it. He's dead. Nothing can change that. Nothing. And then she's opening these bay doors, and it's Blackjack. He's alive. He says, "Hey, kid, miss me?" And that leads us to the next issue. Love this aesthetic, by the way, this pilot junk that he's flying in, I believe. I'm not sure if he's flown into this. Yeah, great stuff. You know, I like this old school pirate science fiction thing with the knives and this kind of clothing. It's just really cool. Yeah, great book. I like this. More is coming, guys. I believe we have 20 issues to go. So we're almost halfway. So stick around, leave a comment below, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.